Okay, how are you doing? Welcome to another event with Dublin Coding School. This time it's a lunchtime event, so if you're joining us and watching live on Facebook now, welcome to the broadcast. And also, if you have any questions, do type them in underneath and we'll get to any questions you have at the end. So if you don't know who we are, we're Dublin Coding School. We've been around now for, I believe, 8 months. We're a tech education provider based in Dún Laoghaire at the moment. All the courses are online. At the moment, we're a career change school. So if you're in an area and you're looking to get out of it and move into tech and work as maybe a data analyst, a web developer, a UX designer, or a software tester, do get in touch and let us know. We also have a career center as well as the school, which helps people get into new careers after they finish the courses. I'll talk maybe a bit more about that later, but the event today, we're going to be talking to our partner, Scale Ireland, who partnered with us recently. And what that partnership means really is that Scale Ireland, who represent quite a few startups in Ireland, I'm sure we'll hear about that now, let the startups know about opportunities for graduates to do internships with them. And that's really how it works. But we'll get a bit into that now. But I'd like to just first introduce Martina Fitzgerald, who's the CEO of Scale Ireland, maybe just to introduce yourself to the viewers.
Thank you very much, Luke. And we are delighted to be taking part and to be partnering with the Dublin Coding School. I think it's an important initiative. In terms of my own background, many people will know me from the telly or from the radio because I spent the best part of 20 years in RTE and for the last 5 up to December 2018 as political correspondent. So I was monitoring all the political developments across a wide range of issues. Then I took a year off and I went to Columbia University as a visiting fellow and did some research on female congresswomen because I'd written a book on female politicians here in Ireland, Madam Politician. And in November, just gone, I was appointed CEO of Scale Ireland, which is a terrific organisation that was set up back in 2019, really to represent and to advocate on behalf of startups. So I suppose that's my background, and I'm delighted to be here and to be involved in such a dynamic sector.
Thank you very much, Martina, for that background. Certainly quite a lot of experience there. And I do remember seeing you actually in RTE before. But and now look, we hope this doesn't get too confusing as we go through this broadcast, but we also have another Luke online here who's Luke Rynne-Cullen. So maybe if you'd like to introduce yourself. I know you're wearing a couple of hats today.
Hi everyone, my name is Luke Rynne-Cullen. I'm the marketing and community lead for Scale Ireland. Essentially where I fell into the startup ecosystem was as a freelance violinist, and I went out and built a bookings platform for the live music industry, and that's evolved now into Tune Release, which is a music startup that empowers musicians to streamline their pitching, marketing efforts when promoting their latest song releases. So we've done a lot of work in Scale Ireland, building a community of founders, fostering kind of peer-to-peer learning, providing a lot of resources for each other to avail of in terms of discounts with our partners and stuff. So it's great to partner with Dublin Coding School to help give them access to talent, which they need, especially at the early days when resources are quite limited. So thanks, Luke.
No worries, thank you. We'll get a bit more on all of that a bit later, but maybe I'll just come back to you, Martina. So people probably watching this are wondering who Scale Ireland are. So it'd be great maybe to get a bit of background about the organisation and where it started and what the mission is.
Well, Scale Ireland was officially launched in 2019 in Dogpatch Labs, and it was, I suppose, Liz McCarthy, who's a tour de force. She came together with Brian Caulfield, who's our chair, and also Patrick Walsh of Dogpatch, and they decided that there was really a gap in the ecosystem in terms of promoting the sector and advocating for the correct policies, to help startups thrive. So out of that, Scale Ireland was born in 2019. And since then, it has grown. There are currently, for instance, many people don't realize the sector, the potential of the sector. There are currently 2,000 startups all around the country, employing 47,000 people. And for every one of those jobs that's created in a tech startup, there's one more further created for every 5 jobs created in a tech startup. So it has huge potential. And we have clusters in Cork and Limerick and Galway, all around the country. And really we have branched out. So we represent tech startup and scale-ups, and we've launched a membership model. So we represent them in terms of policy. We have our budget submission, share options is a key issue, the employment investment incentive scheme, or indeed tax credits. So we represent startups with key stakeholders. We also engage with universities on research projects like Trinity MBA and also TUD MBA students. And we advocate at a European level as well with startup organizations all across Europe to see what can be done to help this ecosystem, this sector as a whole across Europe thrive. And there are many other things we do, including our Slack community, and I'm sure Luke will talk about that, because we've built up a community of startups and founders who come together and exchange advice in a really safe environment, but also in a productive one.
Okay, that's really good. So a bit, are there any sort of key highlights or milestones that or success stories that maybe Scale Ireland have had to date, working with these startups in Ireland in particular?
Well, first of all, we're delighted. I mean, we are about putting together what are the best policy situations and policy points for startups to thrive. So we're really delighted, first of all, that the Alliance for an Innovation-Driven Recovery, the key players in the sector, came together and set up this umbrella group. And that means the HBAN, the Angel Investors, the Irish Venture Capital Association, Euronext, the Stock Exchange, and also Tech Ireland, which collates data, very important data about the sector. And we've all come together into one umbrella group, and we put forward proposals as a sector, as a united front, to government, to Enterprise Ireland, to all the key stakeholders on what needs to happen to help the startups that looking at this today in Cork or Kerry or Dublin or wherever they are, whether in medtech, agtech, fintech, what enterprise solutions, whatever, what can be done to help them. So first, I think that's a huge involvement. We're also a signatory to Scale Up Europe, which is the French presidency initiative in June of this year to help startups thrive across Europe. And it's an action plan and a roadmap of what needs to happen. And we're signatory this year in May to another ambitious roadmap, which is called the Action Plan to Make Europe a powerhouse, a global powerhouse for startups. And we have organizations, 27 organizations from across Europe, national organizations, also part of that. And we're the lead organization for Ireland in terms of those key initiatives. So I think from a policy perspective, it's very important that this sector has its voice heard, because there was a gap when Liz and Brian and Patrick set this organization up. Startups didn't feel that the challenges or the potential that they could reach was being addressed, or that they had a voice with key stakeholders. And I suppose they have that very important voice now. And we've, I suppose, made that a very credible and strong voice by launching a membership model in May of this year, which was critical to the growth of our organisation as a sustainable organisation, but also to our credibility. And we're delighted with such a solid beginning. And we hope that will grow. But that was a key milestone in terms of the development of this organisation. And I think everyone has seen, I suppose, there is momentum at European level and national level. For Scale Ireland, we had, our first really inaugural big event this year, back in February on a Friday at 11 o'clock, and with the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, but also with two founders, many of whom, many people will know them very well, Bobby Healy and Claire McHugh. And on that Friday morning, in February, 500 people turned up to hear about the importance of the role of Indigenous tech startup and scale-ups to the economic recovery. So I think that is another important milestone and sends out a message that there is momentum and there is positivity towards the sector, and that people realize its potential. And it's really important that we support the work of these startups and to let them thrive. And that's what we're all about.
That's really great engagement that you mentioned there. So it sounds like it's certainly a growing movement, if you like, of startups. So when you mention it's startups and scale-ups, is there a sort of an entry-level criteria to come in as an organization? Can it just be someone who's launching something by themselves and wants to be represented, or does it have to? You have to have revenue. What kind of companies are joining? Is there a wide range?
I am going to let Luke answer this question, because he has done so much to build the community. But it was remiss of me not to mention another milestone. We held our first International Women's Day event in March, which I was very told, and 100 female founders turned up, and it was supported by Intertrade Ireland. And that's really important, because this is a sector that needs to create more diversity and promote more diversity, because just 16% of startup companies are led by a female founder. So that's a very important milestone. But in terms of who can take part and join us on our journey, I think Luke is the clever person to answer that question.
Over to you, Luke. Yeah.
No worries. So we're quite a welcoming and accommodating organization. We have really early stage founders right from the idea stage, even students that are just contemplating perhaps becoming founders later in life, right through to the likes of Teamwork, who've raised millions upon millions for their latest funding round, are expanding internationally. So there's kind of tiers for every stage, right from free at the pre-VAT reg stage, right through to scale-ups at over 100 employees. But what we're trying to do as well is have quite thematic channels in our Slack community that allow those that have been through the journey be able to give advice to those that are taking the first steps down that path. So whether that be regarding talent, how to hire, who to hire, finance, and so much more. We're also running events with a number of our partners with the likes of, say, Stripe. And there we get the likes of the head of communications, Christopher Abood, to show you a roadmap of how to become a leader in communications, if that's the path you want to go down. But also, if you're a founder of a company and you're juggling a lot of hats, what do you prioritize, and how best do you manage the communications for your startup? We also have the head of startups as well, which is all about go-to-market and sales and building up your business development team. And more recently, we've had a number of Ask Me Anything sessions with the likes of Anne Hyatt, who's the right hand to Eric Schmidt, Jeff Bezos, and Marissa Mayer. So you can just imagine getting someone of that caliber in to give you the advice and feedback you really need on what pitfalls the successful founders have had and faced, and how did they overcome it. As well as the likes of Eamon Carey of Techstars, who's the managing director out in London. And that shows you kind of what routes you can use to get funding, what accelerators can you go on, where can you get support, mentors, reach out to your first investors, anything like that. So it's quite a broad area, but it's great to be able to tap into all these different experts.
Right. So as well as representing startups and lobbying government and looking out for their best interests, there's also a lot of internal mentoring going on then, and using the experience maybe in the group to teach the smaller startups or people who have ideas how to realize them. Is that right, or is that what you seem to be saying?
Yeah, it's really community led. So we allow those that have done it before to share their learnings. It's just a great platform, I suppose, to be able to tap into each other's knowledge base,
Yeah, and then I think Martina, just before we went on air, mentioned is there a community group or communications, or you call it a Slack group that you've launched that's going on, that seems quite interesting.
And that's true. Our Slack group, that all these activities are being held, and we officially launched our Slack group earlier this year. And obviously, you have to be a member to now join the Slack group. But we have almost 800 startups, founders, funders, and people who are interested in the sector as part of that community. And what is great that Luke and the team have built this up to a really credible community where people feel safe to exchange ideas, to look for staff, to ask very practical questions. And I think what is great, and what Luke has alluded to, is that that people share that information in such a willing way. And you have people, whether they are at the height of their journey of being really successful, or you have pre-VAT reg startups and founders starting off, and there's a willingness to share in this, I think, a credible, safe environment. And they have this network on tap now where if you have a problem, you can literally ask, whether it's on the talent or finances, resources, or all the various channels, that you can ask a question and someone's going to come back to you with an answer and a solution. And I think that provides practical help on tap in a safe environment where you are with your peers. And I think what is great to see is the level of sharing and engagement. We opened a sustainability channel, and my fear is that it wouldn't be of interest to people and to founders, when we were proven wrong, because thankfully, it's probably one of our most successful channels, and it just shows the level of interest, not only for organizations and for startups to be sustainable, but also to help those who are coming forward with sustainable solutions and what they have to navigate and other people's experiences. So it's been a great community, and really huge kudos to Luke for helping to build that and to create that, and also bringing on board all these ambassadors that we're appointing to regulate and to increase engagement on each of the channels, who are doing that on a voluntary level. It's such a great asset for the community, and a credible space. And we talk about tech. This is a community where you're not running into people asking questions. You're doing it every day in a quiet way on the Slack community.
Great. Well, maybe that sounds very interesting. I'd like to maybe to dig into that a bit more, just to learn a bit more about it. Maybe to ask Luke. So it's Slack, maybe just to explain to people who might be watching and don't know what that is, maybe a good just to explain what Slack is, because there will be people who are looking to get involved in tech and don't know all of the the different platforms you can have. And then also maybe it'd be great to hear what the channels are, so they're, and what the topics are, and how it might work. If if someone was to join tomorrow and they were to get on Slack, how would it work from a just to explain it from that level?
Yeah, so Slack is very much like a WhatsApp group in that there's real-time messaging. It's a bit more segmented in that you have different channels for each different topic. So for example, if you're invited into the channel today, you can go to the introductions channel and tell everyone who you are and introduce yourself to the community. Then we have the networking channel, which will be starting engaging from September, where we can do one-to-one intros. There's also the help channel if you're stuck on anything in particular and someone can dive in maybe and hop on a call with you. There's resources where people are sharing a lot of PDF guides on best practices, spreadsheets on the who's who in terms of investors. Then you have talent, which is great for all your job postings. Finance, if you're having any issues in terms of forecasting, doing projections, finding accountants. And then we also have the members perk channel, which is for those that sign up. They can avail of over 100,000 worth of perks from the likes of AWS, Google, MemberStack, and there's so many actually, and there's about 12 to 15 at the moment. And each one caters for a different aspect of your business that you may or may not need to start investing in the tech. So if you're running a subscriptions business, you might want to avail of our MemberStack discount or Outsetup perhaps. Likewise, if you want to focus on your team management skills, you might want to use the teamwork perk. Then we also have well-being, which is very important. There's a lot of founders facing burnout. They really need to learn how do you do work-life balance. Do you do a bit of yoga as well? Do you get a standing desk? Little things like that just to make life a bit easier and make your work a bit more productive. And then we've tech and sustainability, as Martina mentioned. And that's it for now, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more. In terms of our events, we have an Ask Me Anything channel, which is where we get a guest speaker in for half an hour to an hour to get peppered with questions, which is great. It gives us a chance to see what founders are struggling with, are interested in, and that person will then answer based on their experience. Yeah.
How often are those events?
So we usually have them fortnightly on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. So we've had about 6 or 7 to date from the likes of Tendering, Chief of Staff, which was Anne Hyatt, Accelerators, which was Eamon Carey. So we have a lot more to follow as well, which would be great.
Manuel from Lyra on European Innovation Council funding. Tony Corrigan from Orbital on tendering. It's such a key issue with huge potential for startups and all companies really. I think there was one other, and I'm trying to
Andrew McAdam of Microsoft. Exactly. So it was great someone of his caliber on.
And Andrew actually started it off and kicked off our Ask Me Anything sessions. And he did so in a very brave way. He didn't narrow the topic. So you can imagine all the questions that came his way in relation to Microsoft and all their activities, from technical to funding to what they're doing with startups. Everything and anything came at him. And he was such a great sport because he stayed on even longer. He went on and came back and answered more and more. And what is great, that what we're finding is that people that we have chosen for these Ask Me Anything sessions, they get into the spirit of it. And even if the session starts and they feel they want to give more to someone who has asked, like Andrew, they've come back and they've engaged with people even outside of it. So they're getting real value, but we have committed members, but we have also committed experts who feel strongly that they're giving back and they're giving their time. And Eamon Carey, after his session, said, listen, guys, yesterday, and girls, he said, it's not free all day if you want to pop me a question or a direct mail. I mean, and that's the spirit of the community. And that's also what we want to retain within our Slack channel.
Yeah, and it sounds really good that you're putting people to sort of curate each channel. Is that right? So and you're selecting them, I suppose, are they from the membership?
Well, we've just done that. We have just, in September, we'll be starting off appointing key ambassadors, we're going to call them, to given channels who have an expertise or interest in those channels. And Luke will be monitoring them. And actually, he'll be an ambassador. Not just, but he's the, I suppose, chief ambassador, because he'll be minding the full ship.
Yeah. Now, maybe here's a question that's maybe not too related to Scale Ireland, but I suppose it sort of is, because I suppose you have your finger on the pulse with companies that are coming through and being founded and scaling, and you're probably more than anyone are watching how the tech industry is developing in Ireland. There might be people watching this who are working in hospitality or retail or construction, from a wide variety of industries, thinking, should I get involved with this industry? Maybe it's something I'm looking to do. So what would you have, and this could be for either of you, what would you have to say to someone who's thinking about making the career change, coming over to work in tech?
I'm going to talk from the macro, and I think Luke can talk as a founder as well as a head of community. Yeah. In terms of Scale Ireland and potential, and if you're thinking of changing careers or maybe adopting or adapting some of your skill sets to perhaps play some sort of role in this community, you're very welcome. And I'm sure that startups will welcome you with open arms. And I'll tell you why, because there is a demand for staff and skilled staff in this sector. And so much so that it's one of our key policy areas in our budget submission, share options, because VCs, for instance, one of the reasons that they invest in certain companies is not just the quality of the company and the direction it's taking, but also the commitment and experience of the founder and also the team around it. So it's critical that you have an experienced and good team and that you've built that out. So one of the key issues is that obviously startups are having a difficulty competing with bigger companies, whether they're tech or other multinationals or other types of companies, to be honest. They're having a difficulty competing to retain their staff or to recruit staff with those companies because they don't have deep pockets as they would have. So one of the key issues that we wanted to bring was to progress the area, the policy area around share options, and to ensure that employee ownership is encouraged by the state and is attractive. So that's one of the ways that I suppose these indigenous tech startup and scale-up companies can compete with others in relation to staff. And I say that because it's crying out for staff. And you see some sectors that have had a really difficult year, and we're all thinking of them and hoping that they'll do well as the economy reopens fully and the economic recovery moves on. But this is a sector where we have seen, particularly for the scalers and those bigger companies, huge successes. You now have 4 Irish tech unicorns. They're companies that are privately owned, headquartered here, and that they are valued at more than $1 billion. So 2 of those 4 gained that status during the pandemic. Now, obviously, that's at the very extreme top end. And have you every day you open the newspapers or you look online to your various news sites, and you see companies like Luke mentioned, Teamwork, a brilliant, fantastic company set up in Cork that gained I think it's 75 million in funding, if I'm correct, Luke. And these are terrific success stories, but they need staff to grow, and they also need money, companies in general. So staff is a key issue, and there is a demand in this sector for staff. So I think that's very important to lay out. And this is a growing sector. You can see the potential of it, and its value to the economy will be growing every year. And I think we see that across Europe, and that's why there's so many European initiatives. These are resilient jobs. They're good jobs, and in a sector that is resilient to some of, I suppose, the economic turbulence that we've seen in recent times. And I think that Luke can deep dive into then, the kind of jobs and the kind of opportunities in the sector.
Yeah, thank you very much. And over to you, Luke.
There's a couple of areas, I suppose, when one considers going into the tech sector. There's personal development. You'll never learn as quick as you do in a startup or a startup related organization that's high growth. You're going to be juggling a lot of hats. It'll be fun. You'll learn a lot of new skills. But from those skills, then your earning potential increases. So financially, it's quite lucrative, especially as you gain more experience and you have a lot more clients. You could decide to be a free agent. You could also join a company and go up the ranks. In terms of resilience, economic downturn didn't really affect the startup sector as badly as it did some other sectors. If you look at the trends of how things are going as time goes on, there's a lot of automation coming in. There's a lot of AI, ML. If you're part of the team that's building and operating those systems, you're on the right side of the fence going forward. And then in terms of the job opportunities, if you look at Indeed, there's loads of data scientist opportunities, UX, UI designers, the developers of front end and back end, and so much, even sales and marketing as well. That there's a lot there that there's just not enough bodies to fill all those positions, to be honest. So if you're in a job that's really contested, you can earn really well. And touching on one of the policies we're looking at as well, employee ownership. For once, you'll actually have a stake in what you're building. You will, if you're experienced and you've built up your personal brand, you'll be able to get a stake in a company, have a real impact on what you're doing and an impact on the company's direction. So instead of just earning your hourly rate, you have almost unlimited earning potential from the work you do now, and that will last you long into the future.
Thank you very much. No, and I know we at Dublin Coding School very much feel the same. In fact, it is our mission to help people come over and get into the tech industry, albeit starting at an entry level, but getting in there. You mentioned, just before I move on to talking about our partnership, you mentioned something there, and you mentioned you're working on it a couple of times. It'd be great just to learn a bit more about employee ownership and what that is and might mean. People watching might think, what do you mean by that? Whoever would like to answer that.
Well, actually, it's the KEEP scheme is the relevant scheme that we're talking about, and that's geared towards SMEs. And that's one of the key areas in terms that we're trying to increase the level of employees that would be eligible and would find it attractive, and that companies would find it attractive to offer employee ownership under that scheme. And at the moment, I could deep dive into the policy and never come back. But there are a number of barriers and limitations to the scheme at the moment. And I think this will give you an idea of, the level of success of the scheme at the moment, despite all this interest and need for jobs. Like if you look in Scale Up Europe's report published earlier this year, the level of increase in tech job searches in Ireland was in the top 3 in Europe. That was recorded in that report. Now, just 87 employees in Ireland have availed of the KEEP scheme. And obviously there's advantages and tax advantages if you offer someone a stake in your company under the scheme. And it is geared, I have to stress, for small and medium enterprises. But just 87 have taken it up because there are some limitations to the scheme. Without going into the nuts and bolts, it's linked to salary, it's capped at a certain amount, and then the amount that a company can give over a period is also capped. And that's not incentivizing people to take up what should be a really wonderful opportunity to have a stake in a company. So that's why we've gone through the KEEP scheme in detail, and you can see it on our website in our Budget 22 submission, and gone through all the issues that need to be addressed to ensure there's a greater take-up of employee ownership for startups at a time when they're crying out for jobs. And that what they're trying to find really skilled people, and that there's a linkage to need and that demand, and that's something that isn't working. So without going into all the nuts and bolts, and I have done a very extensive presentation to the Irish Pro Share Association on it for 30 minutes on all the nuts and bolts of it with tax experts. But just to say, it's not working as it should do. It's not fulfilling its remit and really encouraging employee. But there are very much positive tax incentives if you do offer a share option scheme under the scheme. It's just very limiting in its current status. So hopefully we'll change that, and that more Irish people will be available, employees will be able to avail of share options, which is a great thing to have an interest and to encourage employee ownership in a company that's thriving and building and growing. And that's how you're going to keep jobs in the sector. But it's also, you're going to see that people really are benefiting from all their hard work and graft. It's such a positive, and it's a no-brainer to fix the problem at the moment. And in every single European initiative at the moment, Luke, across Europe, they cite this as one of the top 3 issues that we have to get right.
Yeah. Okay. So it's, I suppose it sounds like a win-win where you're helping retain staff and they're helping benefit from helping grow the company. And what you're saying really is that it's a work in progress, and Scale Ireland is in there fighting for the corner of startups and scale-ups and staff to get it over the line and change things.
And it's just too limiting in terms of how much share options you can give, the fact that it's linked to salary. But if salaries are already not at the market level, they're at a disadvantage. So you need to link it to another point. And also the amount of shares you can give, the terms and conditions under the scheme. There's so many points I can go into minutiae.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was
not for today.
Yeah.
You can read it on our website, and I would be delighted to come back and go through all of that in detail if you would like to.
No, it was really just in general, just in case, because we know we deal with people who aren't working in the industry. So when things come up, we just give a general, just a general overview of what it might be when it was mentioned. But look, also we've obviously just partnered with Scale Ireland, so we're delighted about that. And as part of the partnership, what we do is, and we let Scale Ireland have announced to their startups that we have graduates coming out in data analytics, web development, software testing, UX design, and those startups then are able to take on our graduates for internships. But we actually had our first graduates coming on board, and maybe if I'd come over to Luke, who is, maybe if you want to, I know you have your own startup, so you do more than just work with Scale Ireland. It'd be great maybe to first hear about your company and what it does, the value proposition, the history, because I also know it's an award-winning company that was mentioned in the Business Post as being in the top 100 startups at one point. So it'd be great to hear about that, and maybe hear about how you've worked a bit with Dublin Coding School then recently.
Yeah, for sure. So TuneRelease, essentially, the whole mission behind it is to empower musicians through technology. So what we're doing is we're providing them with a suite of tools to help them in their promotional and marketing efforts. One of our first products was a pitching service where you could pitch all the major media outlets, radio stations, publications. But as you can imagine, there's a ton of data involved in that, in both monitoring how well the publications are responding to different types and genres of music, but also how many pitches are being sent, what's the success rate of the different campaigns, and then establishing what's the value for the end user. So with Dublin Coding School, it was great to get data analysts involved in the company to be able to visualize that data. Another thing as well is the company needs to really be 100% sure on when they're going to market, where are people coming from, what are the different channels people are originating from. So we've word of mouth, Google search, content marketing via social media or blog posts. And we've tracked all of that. When someone signs up, we know where they're from. What we haven't done is visualize that data and see how much revenue is generated per different channel. So if we're investing 20 grand in content marketing specific to SEO and Google search, are customers signing up but not actually spending anything on the platform? Maybe we should curtail our spending there. But oh wait, most of our customers are coming from social media and most of our revenue is coming from that. Maybe we should get more social media managers involved. So that helps us make decisions with real data, which is nice, instead of just gut instinct, which I think a lot of startups rely on. And that's a real short sprint of a project that gives someone something really good and tangible to put on their CV as well. And the prospect then is if that actually provides return on investment for the company, you can then be in a position to actually hire people, which is nice.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely fantastic. And we had I won't give the names, but we actually had someone who'd worked as a beautician before, a pharmacist, someone who was an operations manager in a very well-known Southside Dublin hotel, and someone else who was working in office fit outs. And I know personally from having consultations with them, wants to be able to work from home because they've recently had a family and moved to Donegal and will be away from the construction scene. So there are 4 people actually you've taken on as interns to give experience to, which is absolutely fantastic for the school. So thank you very much for that. By the way, I had a question just out of interest, because your company is really very interesting. So if I was a music artist, how would it actually work? So if I was to say, look, there's TuneRelease, and I'm a music artist, I'm just starting out, I've had a few gigs and a bit of success, what would I do? How would TuneRelease help me?
So the first product is a song page. So what you do is you upload all your audio files, the MP3 and the WAV, but also all the contextual information, such as the song description, and then the royalty information such as the composer, the ISRC royalty code, and the date of release and stuff like that. So that serves as kind of an electronic press kit. So instead of sending someone files on a Google Drive or a Dropbox, and then a PDF or a Google document with your press release, it's all on the one lovely landing page. And what that landing page does is it tracks the number of streams, downloads, and even views. So that gives you some insight into, is my song performing well? Have 100 people seen it, but only 20 are clicking play? Maybe the imagery is not good, or the contextual information provided it's not gripping enough. Have they streamed it but not downloaded it? Maybe there's an issue there in terms of the quality of the audio. Should I do something else? And what we're building on there is pop-ups for like feedback, star ratings, to give a bit of transparency, because you can pay a PR company 2 to 4 grand to do a PR campaign for you, but are you ever handed the real feedback on how many people were contacted, how have they engaged with it? And that gives you so much learnings to take home as an artist when you're doing your production and your PR strategy. Secondly, we have a directory of industry contacts from bookers, sync agents, PR, and that really is helpful for those that have no contacts list. You don't want to be spending thousands to open up someone else's black book of contacts, but actually never get access to the black book of contacts and have to pay every time you're using them. Instead, you can quite organically build up your own and see which of your contacts are performing best, who's really getting behind your music. Oh, this person's listened to it 110, 20 times. Maybe they're a good potential manager if that's their skill set and if they're interested in my music. So I think it's time to be able to give really transparent data to musicians. And likewise, if a PR agency is using our platform, they can just export the analytics from the campaign, edit which information is visible, because obviously you don't want to be giving away all your emails. And then give that to the client to show, hey, this is what we've done. We've actually put in the groundwork and the legwork, and here's the transparency around what we've done.
So if you're a music artist or a band, does it sort of serve as a little bit like your LinkedIn page, almost, or Facebook page, all in one, and then you can start promoting, and it almost like a marketing platform as well, all wrapped into one
Yeah,
stop.
it's got a mix of social media, and that all your social media links are there, so you can grow your following from that page. But also the data insights are quite like a MailChimp or a HubSpot campaign. But the key thing is keep it simple, because a lot of musicians aren't professional marketeers. That's not their day job. You know, they should be able to focus on the music. So if we make it really simple, all the analytics crystal clear, I think we're on to a winner.
Yeah, no, it certainly is a really interesting company. I know even when I first mentioned it to the graduates, they were music industry, tech. They were very much interested in that one. So yeah, ticked a lot of boxes just as from the general interest. But okay, just maybe back to you for a sec, Martina. Is there anything before we log off? Is there anything coming up with regards to Scale Ireland, or even Luke, that maybe you'd like to announce, or anything like that? Oh, I think you're on mute there.
One of the issues of using Zoom and all of these platforms, we have some great events coming up. On the 13th of September, we have a webinar with the Minister for Finance, Pascal Donoghue, and we're going to have 3 super startups demonstrating the different size, scale, and sector of these startups, and the issues and opportunities that each of those face. And also we'll have some contributions from investors, just giving us, I suppose, a look at the landscape and the potential of the sector and where we are at the moment. So we're delighted to have Pascal Donoghue attending that event, who also has a European hat as president of the Eurogroup. We also are looking down the road to try to problem solve and help startups and get them informed about various initiatives that are coming not only from government, but from Europe. And we all know how many initiatives and regulations can have an impact on any business. So we're holding an information session with Minister Robert Troy on the 21st of September to talk about the Digital Services Act, which impacts startups who are really a marketplace or store or transfer third-party data. So that's really important that they know what's coming down the tracks in terms of their obligations and commitments under this act when it comes down the track in a year or so they can start planning their resources and their staff. And we also will have something special at the end of the year that we're really delighted to be taking part with a new partner, and something that will focus on the sector all around the country. So to be revealed yet. And also at any stage, and I know that your members, some are employees, but some are also students. If you are a student, I am going to be bold and I'm going to say you're very lucky because you can join us for free and you can avail of all of those offers because we want to promote student entrepreneurships. And even if you've gone back and are a student in the Dublin Coding School, will then you come under that too, because we want to promote the next generation or people changing and learning new skills. And that's why we're partnering with you. I think it's an excellent fit. It is the right thing to do at the right time. And this is a sector that has huge potential and it needs more skilled and interested and really enthusiastic people. So we're delighted to be partnering with you. And also I think at the end of the day, startups in the sectors win and hopefully also their new employees.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that. There's some great events coming up and also a great message to our students and potential students there that there's a place also in Scale Ireland. So if anyone is watching, whether they're students or maybe they're someone at a startup, how would they, what's the best way to get in contact with Scale Ireland or to approach? Maybe I'll ask Luke.
No worries. You can sign up on our website, scaleIreland.org/members. And there on the membership page, you can select the student tier and log in with your email and contact details, and we'll add you and verify. Ideally, sign up with your student email. It makes life a bit more easy, but we'll verify it and add you to the Slack community, and you can get started then.
Great. Okay. Yeah. And of course, you've mentioned how that Slack community works. It's a lot of interesting, really brilliant resource there. We can get answers to a lot of questions. Well, look, thank you very much for joining us today. I'll just sign off by saying, if you want to get in touch, you've just heard there with Scale Ireland, but also at Dublin Coding School, our website is dublincoding.ie, so you can get in touch. And my email is luke@dublincoding.ie if you're interested in getting involved in any of these. So courses we offer, again, we're data analytics, full stack web development, UX, UI design, automation testing, which is really software testing, checking for bugs, things like that. And also our new course, we have the fundamentals of cybersecurity, which is launching at the very end of the month on the 30th. And we already have that class is already half full and it's ready to go. So look, thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any final thoughts, now would be the time to say them.
No, just everybody's welcome on board. And I can't emphasize the work that you're doing is really important as well, Luke, that you are giving people an opportunity to become a member of this community and to adopt new skills that are very pertinent and relevant skills. And it's just a great endeavor. And we wish you every success. And I'm delighted to be here. And Luke, with his founder hat on, has seen that firsthand. And it's great to give people that opportunity. And some will come running into this sector, and maybe some it's not for them. But isn't it great to have taken the jump and to get those skills? You're never going to be wasted. They're never going to be wasted new skill sets.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, thank you very much. And we're delighted to be partnered with Scale Ireland. I think you're a great organization with very similar mission to ours, but maybe in different ways. So long may it continue. Okay, well, look, and I'd also like to thank everyone for watching the broadcast. So thank you. Bye-bye.